call the meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Board to order. And I do have an announcement before we move to the informational video. Regular agenda item 9A related to the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Task Force is being removed from the regular agenda. We will not be discussing that this evening. And now, please give your attention to this short video.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Terry Ann. And will you now conduct the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Arnrich?
Here.
Commissioner Butt?
Here.
Commissioner Glover?
Here.
Commissioner Haskew?
Here.
Commissioner Hudson is going to be late. Commissioner Mitchoff?
Here.
Commissioner Obringer for NOAC?
I'm here.
Commissioner Thorpe?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Here.
Chair Geringer?
Here.
Representative, I saw Foley. I believe, are you here for Allen?
Yes, present.
Okay. Representative Powers?
Here.
Okay, and Representative Worth is absent. So we have Commissioner Hudson and Representative Worth absent at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that they both did let us know ahead of time. And welcome to Carlin Obringer this evening, and to, and I'm looking around, Mark Foley. Welcome. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which will, again, this meeting be led by Commissioner Arnrich. So I ask that everyone else mute your microphones, and thank you, Commissioner Arnrich, for leading us.
Thank you. If you'd please place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we will move on to agenda item number 3, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. And Terry Ann, do we have any public comment?
We do not. We have not received any written public comment. Supervisor Glover, did you want to make a comment?
I was just going to move there to ask if he wanted to do that, along with any other members of the public who would like to make a comment on an item that is not on the agenda, but is still within the purview of this body. And Supervisor Glover, welcome. Or your hand was accidentally up?
Yes, my hand was raised from a previous, so no comment.
Well, welcome. Okay, so are there any members of the public who wish to speak to an item that is not on another part of our agenda? And Terry Ann, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Are you?
No hands raised.
Okay, so we will move on. Agenda item 4, we don't have any presentations this evening. We will move on to the consent calendar. And before I ask for a motion, are there any changes or comments from board members? Would anybody want to pull an item? Terry Ann, do we have any written public comment?
No written public comment.
If anyone from the public would like to speak to an item on our consent calendar, this is the time to raise your hand and provide that comment to us. I don't see any hands. Do you, Terry Ann?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
A
Okay.
second.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Haskew, a second by Vice Chair Kelly. Terry Ann, will you please conduct the vote?
Yes. Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson, still absent, Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer,
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe,
Aye.
Commissioner White, Commissioner White. We'll come back. Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Chair Geringer,
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Hudson absent.
Thank you. And I believe that I did see Representative Allen come into the meeting and wanted to welcome her. And I think there were other people too. I apologize if I didn't see all you, but welcome. We'll now move on to our regular agenda items. And our first item for the Administration and Projects Committee is an informational item introduced by Stephanie Hu to provide another in our series of status updates on Innovate 680 program and projects. And Stephanie, I see you're already ready to take it away.
Yes, thank you. And that confirms you see the slide. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, and just really happy to be back this evening for our last installment of our 6-part Innovate 680 board briefings. Just a quick recap of what we've heard and presented. We had a presentation on the program overview, behavior science study, program concept of operations document, a coordinated adaptive ramp meeting presentation. And last month we heard about the transit, first mile, last mile components of the program. And tonight we have Danielle Stanislaw from Emergent Transportation Concepts and Liz Justison from the VSP. Danielle and Liz are both part of the systems team under Innovate 680, and they will be presenting on the key policy issues as well as next steps on the program concept of operations. And with that, I'll hand it off to Danielle, I believe, and I can run the slides for the ladies.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Just doing a quick confirmation. You can hear my audio okay?
Yes.
Perfect. If you can advance the slide. So as Stephanie said, I'm Danielle Stanislaus, and I serve in 2 capacities for the program. I serve as both the stakeholder engagement manager, and I serve as a part of the systems team. So you all have seen this slide before, but I just wanted to reiterate just how important collaboration is to this program. This program cannot be done by one agency alone, and it does involve the partnership of all. At its core, Innovate 680 is a collaborative program built on those partnerships, both from the top down and the bottom up. I want to give a huge thank you to all of the Technical Advisory Committee and Policy Advisory Committee members representing the 6 cities in the county along the 680 corridor, but also the 3 transit providers. We've got BART, County Connection, and LAVTA that have been involved all throughout. And also a huge thank you to our partners at Caltrans District 4 and headquarters, the MTC, CHP Golden Gate Division, and FHWA, who have all been invaluable to this whole process. Next slide, please, Stephanie. So Innovate 680 is also a performance-based program, as you've heard us talk about before. In addition to the collaboratively developed goals, there are also specific performance metrics identified to support the ongoing assessment of these goals. This presents both a challenge and an opportunity, as the goals include not only some of the more traditional transportation-related goals, such as safety and reliability, but they also include some additional important goals such as equity, accessibility, and connectivity. We therefore get to tackle how to assess these goals using both qualitative and quantitative methods, and while relying on some of the newer data sources that are becoming available to us. The program goals continue to be used to help us guide the identification of the program and project level performance metrics, as I just mentioned, and to help define the overall data needs for the program. This provides us with a roadmap for monitoring and evaluating the performance of each of the projects, as well as the program as a collective whole. The program goals also provide a framework for project development, starting with the program concept of operations, which you've heard about from Liz Justison during prior briefings, and for which I'll briefly touch on in a moment. The goals and the associated metrics will ultimately help us to identify and prioritize future strategies and projects, and strengthens our ability to position the program for future funding opportunities. Next slide, please, Stephanie. So as you've heard from the prior briefings, we've provided you all with an overview of each of the 6 projects that currently make up the Innovate 680 program. But with the evolution of the program, coupled with ongoing system monitoring and program evaluation efforts, we fully expect these initial projects to get refined and supported or supplemented by other projects. And that's where having an overall vision and concept of operations for the program as a whole becomes so critical, to ensure that there is a cohesive way to tie all of these program elements together, not just from a technical perspective, but from an institutional and policy perspective. Next slide, please. So you've seen this slide before as well, but I always like to include it because it provides the background and the context for why it is so critical to have a concept of operations document, especially for the program and one as big as and complex as Innovate 680. I want to mention that we have been forging new territory here. You often see ConOps documents done at the project level as part of the project delivery process for transportation technology projects. But program level ConOps documents are less common and perhaps even more important, since they outline not only the technical system specifications that are required, but they also outline the key policy issues that have to be addressed in order to bring the operational concept to its fruition. Next slide, please. So this is a brief overview of the program ConOps document structure. As you can see, it has the typical things you'd expect, like an introduction and the purpose of the document. There's also a big section on reference documents that we use as inputs into this bigger program document. We spend quite a bit of time talking about existing conditions and the proposed concept. And we do include a robust discussion on the operational scenarios, which Liz has also covered during prior meetings with you all, in terms of articulating the end user or operator viewpoint of how the system is going to operate. There's a section on program implementation, and this is really important because that's where we do a deeper dive on some of those key policy and technical issues. So this is intentionally not a public-facing document, and it's intended for use by the technical staff who will have the responsibility for delivering and overseeing the ongoing operations of the system. This ended up being a pretty massive document with over 150 pages, which many of your staff diligently read through and provided comments on. We recognize that since this is such an important foundational element of the program, that it would be beneficial to have a more public-facing summary of this extensive document for you all and for your constituents. And thus, we're currently working on putting that executive summary together. Next slide, please. So again, I just want to highlight the extensive stakeholder engagement efforts that we used, including making use of our Innovate 680 multi-tiered committee structure. And that was really to make sure this document was developed in collaboration with the partners. You can see we had extensive discussion with the technical advisory committee. We had individual comments and individual meetings that were held with each agency. We worked through the program leadership team and the strategic development team. And we're proud to say that the document is in its final QA/QC stages with CCTA. We received over 400 comments on the document, which is a testament to just how extensive this collaboration and review was by all. I will also mention that this program ConOps is a living document and will be updated periodically over time as the program evolves and new projects and system components come online. And now that I've talked a lot about the background and the process for developing the ConOps, I'd like to hand it over to Liz Justison, our program systems management lead, to speak a little bit more about some of the specific technical and key policy issues that we've identified within the program ConOps and that we've been discussing with the Policy Advisory Committee, and that we will continue to be discussing with you during upcoming meetings. So Liz?
Great, thank you, Danielle. And just doing a mic check that everybody can hear me okay.
You're good.
Great, okay. Stephanie, if you could go to the next slide. So I think you guys have all probably seen this architecture diagram before, but I like to bring it out every time we start talking about one of the key policy issues, because it's really important that everybody understand what all it takes to bring this vision together. You know, Tim does a really great job of talking about Innovate, how it's going to be this seamless experience from the end user of waking up in the morning and opening up an app and being presented with the most robust, accurate, up-to-date information, and provides them with options of how they can travel to work or to another destination. But that doesn't happen without a lot of systems coming together to talk to one another with real-time information. So what you guys are looking at right now is a system architecture diagram. And it's by no means perfect and it's by no means design. But what we're really trying to highlight for everybody is to make sure that you understand how many systems need to come together to one kind of core system in the middle that is able to digest a lot of information instantaneously, make decisions, and then end up providing users with accurate information. So what you're looking at right now in the center, and I want to highlight this center, is the core Innovate 680 system, which would be a core decision support system that's making decisions about how the freeway is operating, what we need to do to send out a shared autonomous vehicle. And it's relying upon a robust set of data that we're calling the Countywide Connected Data Center. So it will be communicating with the existing 511 system, getting real-time information from BART or from any of the local transit agencies. It will have information on how the signals are working. It will be understanding how the freeway is operating, and it will be spitting out decisions like we can be using the part-time transit lane right now, or changing the pricing on the express lanes based upon operations. So this is really just to make sure everybody's on the same page of how all it's coming together. So just keep this kind of in mind as we're going through the next couple of slides. So when we started developing the concept of operations, it was really important that we had some foundational decisions and assumptions going forward. So we landed on 4 key assumptions to make sure that Innovate came to life. The first is there would be a centralized decision support system. So what that really means is there's one, call it computer in the middle, that is gathering all the information and disseminating, taking in that information, running it through algorithms, and then disseminating out instantaneously operational changes to the either local streets or the freeway, or providing information to the app so that end users can have robust information. And the other key assumption is that there would be a countywide connected data center so that every partner is sharing in data. Everybody is putting it into that one system so that the decision support system, the computer, has everything that it needs to do its job. And what that requires is that there's going to be some delegated and automated control. And what that means is that some local agencies might say, I'm not going to be controlling my CCTV cameras for right now. I'm going to let some other agency run that because it's what's needed to keep the system running. Or it might be that the MTC express lanes are allowing the Innovate 680 to designate the price on the express lanes, because now the Innovate 680 system has more robust information and of how the freeway is operating to better control the pricing of the algorithm. It also is going to be done automated. So what that means is, instead of perhaps a good example would be if there's an incident in a lane, instead of somebody going in and manually shutting down the lane, it would automatically happen. And that will allow the system to work seamlessly, but that also leads to our 4th key assumption, which is that there would still be a physical operation center, which means that there would still be people looking at the system, understanding how it's happened, communicating with other agencies when there's an incident, overriding the system when something has gone awry, And that's going to be critical because systems are great and they will run in the background, but we still need to have that human intervention to make sure that it's running smoothly. So these are the 4 key assumptions we went through and documented the concept, which helped us trickle down and kind of come up with some of the other policy decisions. Next slide, Stephanie. So one of the ones we're going to just do a quick deep dive on today is O&M, operations and maintenance. So we've been talking a lot about what the program is, how we're going to build it, how it's going to be implemented, the envision. And one of the components of that is it's a system that needs to be operated. So we're going to need to ensure that there's a robust plan for operating and maintaining. That means that there are going to be people who are maintaining the systems, that there's going to be people who are physically looking at the system as it's operated. So we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on that right now. Next slide, Stephanie. And sorry about the dog, working from home. So these are some of the components that are going to need to have operations. We talked about the decision support system, that centralized computer. That needs to be maintained. That needs to make sure that there are systems and software engineers that are going through and making sure the database is working, that the servers have enough capacity to continue running. They need to make sure that the algorithms that are making these support systems are good, that they're looking at how it's actually spitting out decisions and if it's really improving traffic flow. We need to have those physical operators sitting somewhere. And then all the other programs, like Danielle talked about the 6 projects, each one of those is going to have an operations and a maintenance component that needs to be considered as we start to think about how we're going to implement the Innovate 680 program. Next slide. So I'm going to remind you guys of that existing or that architecture diagram. And I'm going to also remind you of some of the operational scenarios we talked about. Somebody is getting up in the morning, they're opening up their app, they're going to maybe hail a shared autonomous vehicle that's going to go through and maybe drop them off at a mobility hub, then they're going to get on a bus, and then they're going to get on BART. And that bus might run a little bit on the highway. And what we have existing in the Bay Area today is a pretty fragmented set of operations and maintenance. And again, I might not have captured every single one of the operations and maintenance components, but these are all the different components we have right now, starting with the state highway system. We have civil maintenance, people who go through and make sure the guardrails are in good working order. The ITS maintenance that go through and make sure the CCTVs are working. And I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you start to get the idea that we have a lot of different operations and maintenance for the state highway, for the arterials, for transit, and then for our overriding systems like Fast Track and Clipper. And in order for Innovate 680 to be operated and maintained, they're going to be touching each one of these components that it's currently today, put through in multiple different contracts through multiple different agencies. So when we start thinking about how we want to deliver Innovate 680, we need to think about a cohesive approach to operations and maintenance to make sure that it's able to deliver the same kind of seamless concept, but from an operations and maintenance perspective. Next slide. I think that's it. I'm going to pass it back to Danielle.
Thanks, Liz. So as you saw from earlier, this listing articulates a lot of the additional program ConOps policy issues. The ones that are shown out in gray are those that we've already discussed with the PAC during our quarterly meetings to date. The ones that are shown in bright blue are the items that are still to come. And as you can see, as indicated in the bottom right, we need to have additional conversations on O&M. This is by no means a one and done conversation, and sustainable funding for those O&M activities is of the utmost importance, especially when you're talking about a program like Innovate 680. Next slide, please. So here are some of the immediate next steps and how we kind of pivot from having a program ConOps into actual delivery. So as I mentioned earlier, we are doing final QA/QC and are looking to release the program ConOps document back out to the larger TAC ConOps working group at the end of this month. We are also working on that executive summary that is more appropriate for the public and for you all, quite frankly, because we don't expect you to read a 150-page technical document. And then also, if you can throw the slides back up, Stephanie, they went away for a moment, at least on my end. We are going to be moving from the ConOps document into development of an implementation plan. And that implementation plan really provides actionable steps to address those key policy and technical issues. And it's going to outline some of the additional things that we need to do in the way of program documentation, and whether that's at the program level or whether that's at the project specific level. And of course, all of this will be done in continued collaboration with all of the partners. Next slide, please. So this graphic just gives you a quick look ahead at where we go from here and articulates some of the next steps, particularly with an eye towards stakeholder engagement activities. So as you can see, the Policy Advisory Committee meets approximately quarterly. They are done with their meetings for 2021 and will next be meeting in February of 2022. The TAC ConOps Working Group will also continue to meet, and they meet in a strategic manner. So that is to say, when there are key decisions or technical milestones that we need to solicit input on. This is wrapping up our series of Innovate 680 board briefings to you all, but where we go from here, as you can see by that orange line, is Tim is going to begin a series of individual board member meetings with you all, where this conversation of O&M is going to be a part of that. So that's some of the things on the horizon, and we look forward to your continued involvement. So thanks so much. And Stephanie, I think that's the last slide. So Liz and I are happy to take any questions or comments.
I know, I'm muted. You all controlled yourself very well. Stephanie, did you have any final comments or?
Oh, just sorry about that weird unsharing. That was weird, but glad that it worked. No, just thank you for your time. And this is our last segment, but in the future, if there's a need for more updates, we're hoping to come back periodically to provide progress updates and information to the board on the progress of Innovate 680 program and any projects under the program.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Danielle and Liz, for that update. And it is exciting, the moving into that implementation phase, and looking forward to those one-on-one conversations with the executive director. So I'm moving toward, are there any comments or questions from commissioners and board members? And I see Mayor Butt with his hand raised, both of them.
I don't know whether it's in the budget or not, but I think it would be really exciting at some point if you could produce a short video that would simulate somebody's experience using the system when it's all done. Take them from the time they wake up in the morning at their home, and they get out their iPhone or whatever, and they do this and they do that, and then they go out and catch this and transfer to that and show up at work or show up at where they're going. With the kind of media tools we have today and the really talented people that use them, I think it would do a great job of taking people from all this technical stuff to really understanding what it all could mean. And I think something like that would be really exciting if you could find the time and the budget to do it.
Thank you. Tim or Stephanie, did anybody want to?
Yeah, Commissioner, but last month we presented a simulation of some of the components of Innovate 680, mainly on the transit side of things and first mile, last mile, but that video has, missing pieces. And so I think to your point, it would be good to maybe have a truncated version and more to highlight all the different elements of the program. But we do have one, but we could certainly make it better to convey the points that you made.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Commissioner Butt. And then moving on to Vice Chair Kelly.
Yeah, I would just like to add that I think Stephanie's, what she showed last time, that simulation was just really great. It really hit home with me. And if that can be improved upon for the public, that would be fabulous. The other thing I would say is to Liz, in terms of automatic control of lanes and so forth, that's good, but you really need to have people there monitoring things. And I don't live along 680, but I live along Highway 80, the first quote, supposedly smart corridor, which is not terribly smart. And, you know, there are signs that come up and say, you know, go 25 miles an hour when I'm going 15. So this kind of thing will always need people and always need adjustments. So you'll be in a process of learning for a while. I'm very excited about it. And I do want to drive on 680 when this is fully up and running.
Great, thank you, Vice Mayor Kelly. And Commissioner Obrinker.
Thank you. I really appreciated this update, and I have a suggestion and a question. I was actually asked by a group of realtors the other day what was happening with transportation, and I briefly mentioned to them Innovate 680, and they were very excited to hear about this. So as you're doing public outreach, I just want to encourage you to think beyond maybe government bodies to some of these other business groups that might be interested and excited and even interested in supporting this effort. And my other question, you know, as we're moving more into automation and technology, we know that there is some kind of cybersecurity attack on a daily basis somewhere. So I'm just wondering, in the ongoing or the long-term budget for this entire project, do we have, is there something included to basically to prevent cybersecurity attacks, to have that ongoing protection and IT support?
Thank you. And any ideas you have for outreach, our executive director has been going out on a number of different, beyond our internal group and the people who know us. So everyone on the board and anyone who is involved, please let us know opportunities for that. And then Tim, I see your hand up. Did you want to respond to the question?
Yeah, I actually wanted to respond to a few things, so maybe I'll save me for the end.
Okay.
I'll just wait for commissioners to say their comments.
Okay, perfect. And moving on to Commissioner Arnridge.
Thank you. This is sort of for Tim and Stephanie. You know, one of our partners is Caltrans, which is essential, but it's also a concern. You know, they're not in the 21st century by any means. And this type of program, I hear from individuals, doesn't have a lot of support. And I'm wondering where we stand with that. Are we dragging them along, or is there really a serious consideration? And is there then a fatal flaw that they've set down the range, you know, in our process, they'll say, well, we don't get through this, we're done. Where do we stand in that relationship?
Commissioner Arnridge, we actually have had a really good collaborative relationship with Caltrans in terms of Innovate 680. You may recall, we entered into a cooperative agreement to form a integration team, and that actually has been really fruitful for us. We completed the one of our programming document in record time, in about 4 months, which is unheard of for the Coordinated Adaptive Ramp Metering project, which was, you know, not only our consultant team, but really took a lot from the Caltrans team to really work alongside with us and really cut through sort of the red tape and reduce the number of iterations of review. So far we've had really good partnership and relationship with the I team that we formed, and definitely money well spent with this co-op that we have in place, because we get the attention from key strategic people that can move things along quickly for us and get the approvals and comments that we need.
That's great.
We will continue to do that moving forward.
Really well done. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And Commissioner White.
I think you just want to thank everyone for the great presentation, very thorough. The question that I have is, you know, as we're designing an enhanced user experience to improve mobility in the corridor, how we're involving the end user to ensure that their experiences are what we envision at the end of the day.
Well, for the Mod Moss app. I know we've been doing some testing with live people, and those who have taken our survey were the ones that were helping us do a mock-up testing. So that's one. And then we will continue to have outreach on our projects to really gather input and questions from the public. We have our newsletters. I know Lindsay's teams are really good about doing our newsletters, as well as the survey, the behavior science survey that we've conducted also gave us input on what the public's looking for. Not sure if I answered your question, or perhaps Tim can chime in, but those are the things that I think would be key elements to making sure that the end users will like what they see, and we gather the information and feedback from them as we're developing our projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other commissioners before I call on our executive director who have any questions that you would like him to cover? Okay, so Tim, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So this is actually really exciting. We're starting to see Innovate 680 really start culminating into some real policy decisions that we need to make the program successful. And so I just wanted to highlight just a few things. One is, you know, if you look at the 80 Smart Corridor, that was a really, really great project. There was a lot of technology, a lot of great features to it, but the system was never fully leveraged because it was never operated as a seamless integrated system. They worked off of an MOU that basically allowed each of the agencies to really operate kind of individually. And so it fragmented the system. And so this is really lessons learned from a system like that, as well as other projects in the Bay Area that we're kind of taking from to kind of build upon the systems of systems for the Innovate 680 program, which is really essential to really make this successful. And I think the other thing in terms of, you know, we're also looking across the world to look for examples of how to make this system actually work efficiently. So, and in terms of automated control, you know, if you could imagine the Caltrans TMC, and obviously they're operating an entire state highway system, but there's a lot of people in that building. There's a lot of people in that TMC. And so we're not necessarily trying to eliminate everyone out of controlling the system. What we're trying to do is actually minimize, I'll say, overhead and try to automate certain key features of the system. So that way we only need to have, you know, a handful of people to really overlook and oversee the system, you know, on a 24/7 basis, or et cetera. And so an example of that is the system, and there's some examples of that actually across Europe. And one example that comes to mind is, and you've heard us talk a little bit about it, but it's the Vic Road system in Australia. And they have a completely automated control system, and they only have like 2 people that oversee about 350 lane miles of this smart freeway system. So if you kind of put that in perspective, it keeps costs down, and then they also rely on performance-based maintenance contracts. So rather having, you know, Caltrans or having some of us doing the maintenance, it's really relying on, you know, performance-based contractors that are actually going out and prioritizing the fix, the maintenance and the equipment and the repairs. So that way it's done quickly, it's done efficiently, and so that way the system continually stays up and running, because it's going to be essential to do that in a very integrated, complex system like this. Nothing can break and be broken, you know, for weeks on end, like typically what, you know, Caltrans would maintain something. So maintenance is going to be really, really important. And then in terms of cybersecurity, that's essential. We are actually testing a lot of the cybersecurity features as part of the automated driving system grant that we're working with USDOT. As you all know, we're looking at a cellular to vehicle to everything environment for that project, and cybersecurity is essential, and we have a partner on board to be looking at those things. And it's going to be something we'll be able to scalable and be able to grow over time with the overall program. And then in terms of the local concerns about Caltrans, I don't want to be somewhat, you know, beating around the bush here. So there are concerns from the locals about Caltrans's involvement in operations and maintenance, particularly as we look at local traffic signal control and other components of the program. So we have an outstanding collaborative relationship with Caltrans, but there are concerns about what Caltrans's involvement will be in operations off the state highway system. And that actually doesn't align with even the Caltrans's mission. They're not really necessarily supposed to be operating, certain things off of the state highway system. And likewise, the local jurisdictions are only supposed to be operating things on local roads. And so that's where you need to kind of start thinking about, an agency or someone that can really bridge the gap between local operations and state regional operations. Because right now you've got, 3 separate entities operating the corridor between Caltrans, which is the state highway system, and ramp metering, express lanes with MTC, and then the local intersections with the local jurisdictions. And that's, if we continue operating it that way, it's going to continue to being fragmented. And if it continues to be fragmented, we're going to get the same results we've seen on the I-80 Smart Corridor. So it really starts thinking about which agency or who needs to take a leadership role to really integrate this whole system together so it's not fragmented. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. And I accidentally hit the mute button instead, but thank you. And thank you again to Stephanie, Danielle, and Liz for the great presentation, and everyone who's given us the updates over our mini series of Innovate 680. And so we will, of course, have many opportunities to follow this implementation as we move forward, but thank you. We will, Terry Ann, actually, I won't move on. Terry Ann, did we receive any written public comments?
No written public comments been received.
Newell had his hand up, Teresa.
Yeah, I was just say, Chair, I think
Okay.
Commissioner Armrich had his hand up.
His actual hand, and so I was
Sorry, on my screen, I'm next to Tim. I have nowhere I'm on your.
it's quite okay. I'm sorry that I overlooked you.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to follow up, because that was my question, Tim. Thank you for addressing that. It's a real concern. As you know, we've had experience on the 680 corridor working with Caltrans, and you're right, Stephanie described, we have sometimes the right people, but it's disconnected, and their responses, I mean, we have an off-ramp, the main off-ramp, and it moves 10,000 cars a day just on this one on and off-ramp. The lights, it's a high level low. It's a dangerous one. It's pitch black right now, and it's been that way for a month. All of the giant billboard signs in that area, they're all off. And this happens repeatedly. And getting Caltrans to respond to stuff like that, my God, what are they going to do with rent metering? The technology, if we can put that out to a private contract, a fee for service, we can set standards for response times, rapid response. We can manage that, whether it be us as an agency. If so, we have to have that revenue source. But the fact is that we have to come up with rapid response systems to make this work. Technology only works because it works rapidly, and the servicing of it is essential the same thing. So if we can't do it with lightning speed to keep it up and running and manage those things, and as you know, the loop detectors go out all the time. There's heavy trucks, the garbage trucks have a tendency sometimes to make disconnections. So just food for thought. It's the maintenance of it as well that we have to figure out how to do. Rapid response, not normal Caltrans. It will not work. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Newell. Any other commissioners? Any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? If you would please raise your hand, and Terry Ann or I will notice that and call on you. And I see no other virtual or real hands waving.
No hands raised.
Great. Thank you, Terry Ann. And again, thank you to everyone on this presentation and to the commissioners for the discussion and questions. Our next item on the agenda is an action item that will be presented by Jack Hall regarding executing an agreement with Telegra on the Innovate 680 project. And Jack, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Geringer and commissioners. My name is Jack Hall. I'm the ITS Connected Autonomous Vehicle Program Manager for CCTA. This evening, we are asking for approval of an agreement with Telegra related to our Innovate 680 automated driving system project. In the agreement, Telegra is responsible for providing hardware and software for active traffic management systems infrastructure, video analysis and detection, data gathering from infrastructure at Clementum Station, vehicle to everything infrastructure, integration of other ADS data generating systems, and storing and archiving of real-time traffic data. Costs of services will be shared by the ADS grant funds, state local partnership program funds, and Telegra in-kind contributions. The estimated cost of Telegra's scope of services is $1,990,000, which Telegra will contribute $375,387 of in-kind services, and Telegra will be compensated in the amount of $1,614,613 from ADS project funding sources. With that, staff seeks authorization for the chair to execute agreement number 574 with Telegra in the amount not to exceed $1,614,613 to provide active traffic management system infrastructure services, and to allow the executive director or designee to make any non-substantive changes to the language. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Are there any commissioners who have any questions of Jack? Terry Ann, did we receive any written public comment?
No written public comment has been received.
And before I ask for a motion and a second, do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on this item? And
no hands raised.
Thank you, Terry. And may I have a motion?
I moved the item as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And so we have a motion by Commissioner Arnrich and a second by Commissioner Obringer. Terry Ann, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Butt?
Yes.
Commissioner Glover?
Yes.
Commissioner Haskew?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Thorpe?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
Chair Geringer?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you. And thanks again, Jack. Always very thorough and efficient reports when you bring items to us. So thank you. And we'll move on now to the agenda item 9, the Planning Committee. And as you'll recall at the beginning of the meeting, agenda item 9A was pulled by staff from discussion and consideration. So we will move now into our correspondence and communications. There are a couple of letters in the packet that were sent by the Authority Board, one to the Regional Water Quality Control Board and Marin Municipal Water District, and then an additional letter from the Authority to the City of Concord. And those, as I noted, are in your packet. We'll move on now to correspondence and associated committee reports, agenda item number 11. And we have committee reports also provided in your board packet and in your handout packet. So moving along to item 12, comments from board and staff comments. And on the chair comments, I'm going to actually, because I would like to note, and I hope that Tim will note it as well, but I want to congratulate our executive director on being the recipient of a special district's government and innovation in leadership. I think I'm saying that correctly, award. And if you get to visit in the CCTA offices, there's a lovely trophy, and you may have seen this on our social media. I hope everyone is following Twitter and LinkedIn. Tim got lots of kudos from different folks on the LinkedIn post that we had. So a big round of applause for our friendly executive director of CCTA. And then we will move on to, and that concludes my reports. We will move on to comments from commissioners. Any comments from commissioners? And I see Commissioner Hudson, and then we'll move to representatives after that. I see Representative Allen. And Commissioner Hudson, welcome back. I look forward to any reports that you have for us.
Wow, did you sell that? I
Yeah.
attended the California Transit Authority conference last week. I need to report out. And then the APTA conference right after that, which I probably should be reporting out, but I'll leave that to Tim and the other group that went. The focus at each of them is the same, and it's the same all over the Bay Area and the country, actually. Focus on diversity, inclusion, and equity. I was a little surprised how strong APTA went after it, even more than the CTA group. What caught my attention more than that, though, is one of the speakers at the forum says we need to reinvigorate interest in transit careers. Even went to the point of saying, when you ask a kid what they want to be, some want to drive a fire engine, some want to drive a dump truck, nobody wants to drive a bus. And there's a real problem in recruiting, not only for bus drivers, but for the whole transit industry. So I think you're going to see a reinvigoration of that. Also the talk, just like anything in transportation, was Build Back Better. You'd think we're getting 10 trillion in this measure instead of whatever. But I mean, everybody's got the money spent and 10 times over. And I think going to have a real battle to get some of that stuff. I hope more of it is not by formula, because I never seem to think those formulas work out in our favor. But in any case, Build Back Better was the discussion throughout the country. And we'll see where it goes. I think we're as positioned or well positioned as any to get it. I will say tonight, what I'm going to tell 3 CTA tomorrow, the APTA conference that is held every 3 years will be held in 2 years in Orlando again. And you're really doing your disservice to your cities if you're not going to this. I was amazed that the cost for 2 days or 2 nights in Sacramento was far more than what it cost me for 4 nights in Orlando. Taxi prices might be a little bit more to add on to that. But Orlando is just an absolutely huge conference with over 300,000 square feet of everything to do with transportation and transit. And I was really excited about some of the advances I'm seeing with the autonomous vehicle. And I hope, Tim, you were too, because I'm impressed with this To Get There. And that's the name of the one that caught my attention. To the number, get there. They're really making strides on that. That's the end of my report.
Mayor Hudson.
Who said
Yes,
that?
Commissioner Thorpe.
Well, you forgot to report out that you won the raffle.
You'll have to report that other places.
I'll sell it to you. No.
I did see that a number of people were able to attend. Commissioner Butt.
I missed last month's meeting when apparently there was a lengthy discussion about the Richmond-Sanderville Bridge and the Marin Municipal Water District intertie. But there's been a lot of interesting developments, and it's I'll just mention a few of them. One of them is that that East Bay mud, which is an essential ingredient in making this happen. I don't know if the board's voted yet, but I think they're going to take a position that they're not going to do anything that the city of Richmond doesn't approve. And another thing that's happening, of course, the reservoirs in Marin County are filling up. One of them's full already. And so the question of whether it's actually an emergency or not is an emerging issue. And the Bay Area Council has launched a project to try to get rid of the third lane the bike lane. And they're like totally committed to it, And so there's kind of World War III in the transportation industry shaping up. At the bridge, you've got the Bicycle Coalition of the East Bay, Bicycle Coalition of Marin, Trails for Richmond Action Committee, the environmentalists, kind of all on one side, and then you've got the Bay Area Council on the other. And I don't know how it's going to end, but it's not a pretty picture right now. We're trying to sort it out and get everybody on the same page, but I don't know if it's going to work.
Well, thank you for that update. We did miss you last month and did have a lot of the various groups that you just mentioned speak to this item. And so we did send a letter on in support of the bike lanes in particular. So we'll stay tuned.
Was Tom missing?
Was Tom missing? Well, he wasn't here. Representative Allen, I see your hand up, and any other commissioners who want to give reports, please raise your hand. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Chair Geringer. I wanted to give a quick update on BART and a couple of other things. First of all, ridership. I'm asked about this a lot. Ridership for October was at about 27% of pre-pandemic, inching up a few points every month. It looks like November we're going up just another point or two so far. The audit committee for the BART agency appointed and seated its 2 public members. So we now have a 5-member audit committee on BART that met this week. The purpose of that committee is to spend more time on, listening to presentations about financial issues with respect to BART. BART is cheering loudly for the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act this week. FTA formula funds are expected to continue to support rebuilding efforts at BART, which have been ongoing. And California expects to receive about $9.5 billion for public transportation. Here's something that I'd like to throw out for you all. I think it's exciting and I think you should know about it. Capital Corridor, which is another board that I sit on as a BART board member. I'm a member of the Capital Corridor JPA board. And Capital Corridor is now studying the future replacement of the rail bridge between Martinez and Benicia. And the infrastructure bill passage actually makes that more of a reality than ever before. That bridge is 90 years old. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to hope to take an active role in advocacy for replacing that bridge. I'm hoping it gets replaced before its 100th birthday. We'll see. But, that bridge is currently a logjam in the rail system between Contra Costa and Benicia. Many of the trains have to stop and slow, and it definitely slows down the Capital Corridor, the Amtrak trains that go through there. So I'm hopeful that we can open up more intercity rail capacity with that project. The final thing is BART board meets this Thursday, 9 a.m. You can catch us on Zoom. Lots of fun things always go on at the BART board meetings. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have a report? I'm going to use a little bit of executive privilege and go backwards to the chair report. I did want to just acknowledge that I did attend the Focus on the Future virtual sessions Monday and Tuesday of this week, and got to listen to Tim as one of the newer executive directors of all of the organizations throughout the state give an update, and Tim did a great job. And with that, we will transition to executive staff reports, and Tim, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Geringer and commissioners. Really appreciate the support. I just want to say the leadership award was really a recognition, just not by me, but really a recognition of the entire authority board and the leadership of the board and the support that you give us and the staff to be able to do the things that we're doing. And really, honestly, it's also the amazing staff that we have here at CCTA as well. We're only right now, we're only 17 people here at CCTA, and there's a lot going on, and everyone is just doing really amazing work, really in the spirit of our culture and being entrepreneur and autonomous and forming more collaboration and partnerships across the Bay Area that I've ever seen at CCTA. And so I really appreciate the support by the board, the support by our amazing staff, and just really thank you. And I think the other thing is it's the focus on the future conference. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about the new infrastructure bill, and so today or this week was officially infrastructure week. It's finally here. And so the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, we're already taking a really close look at it. I think you're already aware that it's about $1.2 trillion. It's about $550 billion of new federal spending. That's on top of the reauthorization of the FAST Act, which is about $475 million. And I think some of the other things that Representative Allen already highlighted some of this, but there's also, $91 billion just for the first year alone for federal funding for transit. So, that's a 31% increase. And I think that's really important for the Bay Area and for other transit operators across the nation in terms of realizing impacts of COVID and the pandemic. I think the other big component is electric vehicle charging. There's about $7.5 billion worth of programs for electric vehicle charging. We are very well positioned for that funding because we already have an electric vehicle readiness blueprint. And so it really helps us outline our priorities, and it's really going to help position ourselves really well for that funding. And then also $78 billion for rail safety freight related programs. And so those are just a highlight of some of the programs, but particularly some of the programs that we are really targeting at CCTA. I already mentioned a lot of electric vehicle charging, but there's a new program called the Carbon Reduction Formula Program. And this program is really going to be focused on traffic management, trails, bikes, and pedestrians. And, we do have the Transportation Livable Communities and pedestrian bike trail facility funding. There's almost $26 million in Measure J. And we should be looking to really leverage that $26 million as much as we can against some of these Vision Zero and walking, biking programs that are going to be in the infrastructure bill to really help kind of bundle projects together, get better bids, and try to really chew off a lot of what's in that bicycle pedestrian plan to really support the development of our low stress bicycle network. The other one that we're looking at is the SMART program. It's the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation Grant Program. There's $500 million and on an annual basis. I'm sorry, over 5 years, so $100 million annually. And that's really the technology category. So we're really laser focused, and obviously we're gonna be really well positioned for that as well. And then the other program, there's also a new research and development program that's being formed as part of the infrastructure bill. And so it basically helps, it's called the Advanced Research Project Agency and Infrastructure Program, ARPA-I. And this is really to fund research and development for advanced transportation infrastructure technologies. And we're laser focused on that as well. We'll be well positioned relative to Gomentum Station. And I think, as you've already been hearing, we're already starting to position ourselves for the infrastructure bill. At the last meeting, I did say that we were already meeting with the Build America Bureau, FTA, Department of Energy. We also met with the new, or potentially, he's at least the nominated one, and hasn't been really finalized yet, but the new NHTSA administrator, Stephen Cliff, and he's from CARB from Sacramento. So he's actually local here to California. And so we're excited to start building a relationship with him to start talking about how we can do more regulation reform around the shared autonomous vehicle and rulemaking as well. I was also interviewed by KCBS about the authority's support and partnership with Stantec to fund an all-girls STEM focus club at Ignacio Valley High School called the Femineers. There's actually a link in the executive director's report. You can listen in on it. But this is just such a great program. And really, Lindsay's been really the one spearheading this with Ignacio Valley High School and helping forming those partnerships with Stantec. But this is a great opportunity. We can continue expanding this program across the county, but we do need funding. So we need to find support from our private entities like Stantec or others. And there's an application process to expand this at the high schools across the county. And so that's something we can do. But these types of programs, as you all know, is extremely vital, really important to train the workforce of the future. And we've got challenging issues ahead of us. And so we need to have creative minds and ready to solve problems to address some of the challenges we're facing. Jack Hall and I attended the ITS World Congress in Hamburg, Germany, and glad to report that CCTA is a leader in innovation, even in the global world. It was a great conference. We were able to really sit back and look at a lot of what's happening across the nation, and a lot of it was addressing, a lot of the regulation reform, both with autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles. But it was also really interesting to see how some of the other departments of transportation, even in the United States and across the world, are really more engaged and more involved in their connected autonomous vehicle programs. So that was a big takeaway for me, is we got to get Caltrans more involved with this, get more state funding behind it, so we can really continue to be a leader across the nation and across and globally. Other states are already positioning themselves in this way, and we need to continue doing so, especially since with Momentum Station. As Commissioner Hudson noted, some of our staff, Lindsay and Peter and myself, attended the California Transit Association annual conference in Sacramento. And then I attended APTA in Orlando, Florida last week, and that was great. I think it's really important that we are there. We're there to support our transit operators. We're there to listen and learn what they're learning. Commissioner Hudson already noted some of the highlights in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those are important topics in terms of transit to make it more attractive, more efficient. And we need to be there side by side with our transit operators. I also got invited to a VIP reception from the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and they have a consortium across the entire state called Autonomous Florida. And they're actually progressing very rapidly in terms of some of the connected and autonomous vehicle programs in Florida. So it's interesting to see what they're doing. But they're also using a lot of the same partners and technologies that we're also using, including Local Motors and Perrone Robotics. And so it was really good to find opportunities to collaborate with other partners, especially as it relates to regulation reform and looking towards rulemaking with NHTSA and USDOT. I had the pleasure of meeting with Concord First, the selected developer for the Concord Naval Weapons Station, and gave them an overview of CCTA, our role in the county, and the opportunities that we have to work together, and really what our role is going to be in terms of congestion relief, and as well as leveraging Momentum Station to create a first-class campus district at the Concord Naval Weapons Station. So that was a really good meeting, and we're going to be continuing doing that with Concord First. And then lastly, set your DVRs next week, Monday, November 22nd. I did send an email on this, so I'm hoping everyone saw it, but next week, Monday, November 22nd at 9 p.m., KQED is going to be doing a documentary about transportation in San Francisco, and CCTA and our Shared Autonomous Vehicle program were highlighted in the program, both the Bishop Ranch and Rossmore, and our one and only Randy Iwasaki made the final cut into the video. And so he'll be able to make his cameo on live television next week. And then also want to save the date. On April 5th, we're going to have our Redefine Mobility Summit. So we're going to be bringing that back. We didn't have it last year or this year, this year. So we're going to be bringing that back next year, and some exciting things to come from that. So save the date, April 5th, Redefine Mobility Summit. I'm sure Lindsay will follow up with all of us as well, to make sure it's on our calendars. So that concludes my report, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Do you want to get the mayor there?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Do any commissioners have questions or comments? I don't see any raised hands, but thank you very much for giving that very detailed report, and for for representing the authority board. And I knew that you would be humble on the award, but also accurately thanking the staff and recognizing all that it takes to have the agency and individuals within our agency be rewarded. So with that, thank you very much to staff as well. The next item are calendars. The calendars were provided in your packet. I'm going to move to adjournment and will again thank everyone, all of my colleagues on the authority board and staff and all of our partners, and hope that everyone has a very happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday season. And we will see each other again, if not before, on December 15th, 2021. So our meeting is adjourned. We're waving goodbye. I was wondering if somebody wanted to talk, but okay, good. Thank you. I wonder if we'll all wave goodbye in real life when we